Hey everyone, welcome to another lesson. Today I'll be showing you how you can get the best results recording the classical guitar at home or in a home studio. So let's get into it. This lesson is an introduction to recording the classical guitar. I'll be going over a very basic setup that closely mirrors the setup used by many professionals that have recorded your favorite classical guitar records. It's surprisingly easy and gives you great results with almost no effort. So when recording classical guitar, the thing that will affect the quality of the recording the most is not so much the gear, the microphones, or anything like that. It's always the player, the performance, and the instrument that you're playing. A close second would be the sound of the room that you're recording in. All of that together is about 95% of the actual sound on the record. All of the fancy gear-related stuff like preamps, microphones, plugins is less than 5% if I'm honest. A good analogy is that recording is a lot like cooking a steak, and bear with me on this one. If you start with a great cut of meat, you really don't have to do anything to it, just some salt and pepper, and that's pretty much it. And absolutely nobody cares what pan you cooked it in. The same goes for recording. If you start with a convincing performance with good tone and a good instrument, absolutely nobody cares what preamps, plugins, or anything like that you use in the production. So the setup I'll be discussing in this video is the A-B stereo pair. This setup is favored by many engineers because it gives a great stereo image and a very natural sense of depth to the recording. I'll be using a pair of small diaphragm SE Electronics SE8s into a Focusrite Claret 4-pre USB preamp going into PreSonus Studio One. It's important not to get hung up on the gear that I'm using. If you want, you can check out my other video on a budget versus pro recording setup down below. So first I'll give you a little information on the studio that I'm recording in. My home studio is just a large bedroom where I've just repainted and added some acoustic treatment to the walls, just to control echoes and other kinds of artifacts like that. Basically, if you're recording guitar at home, you want to find the largest, most dead sounding room that you can. Try to avoid cubed rooms as much as possible, where all of the walls and ceilings are the same size. This can introduce some weird acoustic artifacts and frequencies into your recordings. It's important to note that you can always add reverb in post, and you probably will if you're recording at home, but you can never take it away. If you record in a very small room with echoes, that will be imprinted on your recording, and when you add reverb later, it can sound kind of bizarre. It'll sound like you have a guitar recorded in a tiny room inside of a church, which will sound very strange to the listener. For my setup, I always record lengthwise in my room, roughly a third of the way into the room. Never record in the dead center of a room, or you risk canceling out frequencies and you get other kind of weirdness in the recordings. After that, all I'm gonna do is throw my mics up on a stereo bar, space them apart, and face them towards the guitar. They form a 90-degree angle to the stereo bar. Crucial variable now is the placement and distance from the mics to the guitar. In a home studio, you almost always want them a little closer than you would if you were recording in a concert hall or a church, where you really would want to capture some of the natural ambience or reverbs of those spaces. However, if the mics are too close, it will sound kind of boomy and you will hear all of those awesome string squeaks. It's hard to give precise measurements, but essentially I like to place the mics about an arm's length away, a little above the guitar, almost head height, and shifted slightly towards the bridge. I find this makes for a better stereo image and representation of the guitar overall, and again, avoids those string squeaks which will take your head off when you listen to it. After that, you just want to set a basic level, so play through the loudest part of your piece and make sure you're not clipping, or going into the red, and make sure that your loudest peaks are roughly around -12 dBFS in your DAW. Once you do that, you're about free to record. Even if your mics aren't optimally placed, it'll still sound pretty good. But I can't emphasize enough how much you should experiment, move the mics around, and find what works best for you. Sometimes you could be just as much as an inch off for finding the perfect spot to get better tone. And sometimes it varies from guitar to guitar. So here are two examples of what this recording setup sounds like. The first one is going to have no panning and no effects whatsoever, just dry straight out of the microphones. And then the second one, I'm going to pan and then add reverb so you hear the full effect. that's it for this lesson. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. If you have any questions or topics you'd like me to cover in future videos, please leave them down below in the comments. I'll see you in the next video.